to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. So glad you've joined us today. You can always find us at goodlifetelevision.org, where you can watch a lot of great interviews, a lot of great people, a lot of great stories. We try to inspire, we try to honor, we try to empower, encourage. It's about the good stuff, which in today's world is a nice change. So thank you for being with us. I'm really excited today about my guests. Douglas and Spencer Doman are with me. Welcome, guys. President and CEO of Doman International, domaninternational.org, D-O-M-A-N, international.org. And we're going to talk about what Doman does. Doman International is a nonprofit. The sponsor of this program of Good Life TV is the Turner Foundation here in California. You can go to theturnerfoundation.com. The Turner Foundation has a partnership with Doman International for the purpose of seeing as many children with special needs get help as possible. What these folks do in the area of helping special needs, especially children, develop, grow, improve, become well, is incredible. I know that because I'm a parent of a special needs child we've known them 17 years, and it was life-changing for us what happened when we were introduced to them and we were given answers, given a path for how to help our child. So, long introduction, sorry. But let's kind of start with the mom who goes to the doctor because she thinks something's not right with her child. Talk about this.
Well, this is a story that my father first heard 60 years ago, and then he heard it over and over again, and he realized this is, really the foundation of the pathway that parents go through that in some cases leads to us and to Doman International. And it starts out with a mother, of course, thrilled with the birth of her new baby. Now, we see all kinds of people with special needs, with all age groups and adults as well, but the majority are, of course, children. And so mothers, who have a special relationship with their babies, dads may try to help, but will never be in the same league with the mother. She just knows, even if it's her first baby, that there's something wrong. So she goes to her physician. She says, "Doctor, there's something wrong with my baby." And the doctor says, "All mothers believe that, and there's no problem." So a mother goes home, she watches her baby develop or not develop, and she's getting more and more concerned because she's concerned that her baby is falling behind. And so 6 months later, she goes back for her next appointment, and she says, "Doctor, there's something wrong with my baby." Her voice is being raised now. And the doctor says, "You shouldn't compare one baby with another. They're all different in terms of their speed of their development." And so she's spent home again and frustrated because no one is listening to her. And so 6 months go by, and she says, "There's something wrong with my baby." And she's getting, quite not happy now. And the doctors say, "Don't worry, come back in 6 months and we'll see." Well, she comes back 6 months, and she says, "Doctor, there's something wrong with my baby. Are you going to do something about it, or am I going to have to find another doctor?" And that is the day that we discover the special needs child, because finally the professional is convinced, no more dragging of the feet here. I'm either going to lose this patient or I'm going to do something about it. And sometimes they do lose the patient, and the mother goes and finds someone who will pay attention to her. Now, the story that I've told, which takes 2 years, would be typical for a severely brain injured child. For a profoundly brain injured child, it may take 12 months. For a moderately brain injured child, it may take 4 years. For a mildly brain injured child, it may take 5 or 6 years. So it takes longer to play out. But obviously what we learned is we listen to mothers. They know their children, their babies, better than anybody else in the world. And any physician who is involved in special needs children that doesn't do that, go and find some other work, because the mothers know, and they are the experts, and we're there to help them.
Right. So if you're a mother out there and you have a newborn, and we're going to talk, this show is really about the brain, but it's also about Doman International's work, but really it's about the brain, and from special needs children and, what we call well children, that aren't brain injured in that way. But so a mother with a child that she has concerns about should go in and find somebody to listen, should go to domaninternational.org and talk to somebody, because you're saying that mother's intuition is right.
We would bet on a parent's intuition every time. It's almost a sure bet. Right. I don't think I've ever met a parent that came to Doman International and said, I think my child has a problem, and we evaluated the child and found that the child didn't have a problem. So when
never happened.
I hope one day that happens, but parents' intuition is usually spot on. Yeah.
And by the way, we have representatives all around the world where you can pick up the telephone and talk to them right now. And these are mothers, so they are, first of all, mothers themselves, so they've seen their own children develop, and they're also members of our staff, fully trained in terms of helping mothers to get themselves onto our Doman Method course, which is the beautiful online course that exists today, which we have in 5 languages, in English, Italian, Spanish, Serbian, and Russian.
Wow. So those two examples I just gave. So you've got the mother has a child, she's concerned that developmentally something's going on, and I think you would add the earlier the better. The earlier she reaches out, the better.
And this is one of the ways that the internet has been hugely helpful to us, because in the old days, 30 years ago, with snail mail, it may take mothers years to be able to find us.
Right.
But now, with the internet and domaninternational.org, which has a huge amount of information about the Doman Method and our work, we have parents who call us when their baby is 2 months of age, and that is perfect. I mean, we save years of time by starting earlier. As you had mentioned, a child brain injured, particularly in the midbrain, will tend to get tighter in time.
Right.
Well, when they're babies, they're loose. And if we have them as a baby when they're loose, we can get them crawling and creeping and walking much more quickly.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And it's a wonderful aspect. And Dean, and this is a whole other discussion that we probably don't have time for right now, but we have mothers who will have amniocentesis, and they'll be told, you're carrying a trisomy 21 baby. And mothers mothers have told us on many occasions, they will get the call, here are the results of the amniocentesis, and by the way, we've scheduled the abortion for April 21st. So here is a woman who has just been hit with the possibility that she has a moderately, severely brain injured child will be born to her, and now the child is condemned before they're ever born.
Right.
Now, we've had those mothers that said no, and they went to work. What is this thing, Down syndrome?
Right.
They have taken our special needs course while they're still pregnant.
Wow.
So when the baby is born, they start the program from the very first day of life. And wow. I mean,
wow, that's amazing.
Spectacular.
So the earlier the better. So on the special needs side, the earlier the better. You have a concern, something's not right, intuition, mother's intuition, domaninternational.org, give you guys a call, because the earlier the better. On the well child side, for that mother who has a newborn or a young child or a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old, what I think, what I'd love you to talk about, Spencer, is what's possible. What's possible? This human brain that is so magnificent, that as Douglas has taught me, we only use a real small portion of. Some smaller than others, but what I've learned from you guys is what is possible for that, especially the child. And if you don't have a brain injury, the well child, I mean, each one of these newborns, the potential is literally unlimited. What you can do, but it's not going to happen if you just put them in the swing and watch them.
Right.
Right.
Well, I mean, even when I did my master's in early childhood education, in my first course that I ever took, our professor said to us, two things that I had already known from my grandfather, Glenn, but it was good to hear from someone else. She said, first of all, the first 6 years of life are the most important for brain development, which was true. And she said, it doesn't matter how good an educator you are, the most important people in that child's life are the parents. Those are the people who are actually going to have the greatest influence on that child's success in life, academic success. And that was something my grandfather, Glenn, wrote books about and taught parents about and taught us about.
Right. Did she know you were Glenn Doman's grandson?
I don't think so.
I would have mentioned that if I was.
But so and that's what we teach parents about, right? It's really about the great potential of kids and parents' great influence on their children. And so we teach parents what they can do at home with their kids to help that child's brain development. Just like how for a child with special needs, right, how neuroplasticity and the brain's ability to change can be the answer to that child's problems. For a neurotypical healthy child, the neuroplasticity also offers them a great, it allows that child to essentially they could develop faster or they could develop slower based on the stimulation that they're getting in their environment, right?
Right.
And we know sad versions of this where children who might grow up in environments where they don't get the stimulation that they should, how that impacts their development. But on the other hand, in a more positive way, if a child grows up in a home where they're given the cognitive stimulation and the physical stimulation that parents can provide to them, it can reap all kinds of amazing rewards for that child. And so we teach parents not just about the best way to teach their kids, but also how to make learning a joyful process. Because that's an essential ingredient to being successful.
If there's anything that I've learned about parents, and of course we have dedicated our lives to parents who then of course are empowered to treat their children, is that I learned a long time never to judge a parent, because we have seen parents who are medical doctors, and hundreds of physicians have brought their children to us.
Wow.
And some of them have not been very bright and not been the best of parents. But we've seen other ones that are spectacular parents. And we've seen parents who only went to 3rd or 4th grade who have been spectacular parents. So whatever the background, because our families have come from all over the world, more than 100 countries, from all different backgrounds, ethnicities, religions, and everything. It really boils down to the human spirit and that unconditional love that they all have for their children.
Yes.
And that is, what makes the difference.
And what you do, I mean, obviously what you do on the special needs side is just incredible. On what you do on the well side, which by the way, there is a specific website program, Doman Learning, correct?
.com.
So parents with a child without a brain injury who want to know how they can help their child, get ahead and maximize their incredible potential, go to domanlearning.com. The parents on the well side that do these things, thankfully we got to do them with our kids. And I know, Spencer, you're a proof positive of this whole theory, but you were raised in the program. But because we have a brain injured child that came to you guys, all of our other 4 children got the benefit because we're showing them word cards and we're showing them bits of intelligence, these cards and they're just, they get ahead. And, my wife and I talk about this all the time. We're not trying to win or beat the neighbor. We just want to give our kids the best shot to be the best version of themselves they can be. Yeah. This is not about, am I smarter than the Joneses? But as a parent, what could be more exciting than giving your child the maximum opportunity to be the best version of himself or herself that he can be?
Well, that was my father's vision when he began his work with special needs children right after the Second World War and developed that. And by up to the 1960s, it was in the early 1960s that when he realized the incredible potential of special needs children. Their original objective was for these children to be well, but he learned that they had the potential to be above average. And again, a completely wild idea that could happen. Right. And the way that happened was that my father was a physical therapist, and so children who were diagnosed with cerebral palsy, which is actually a midbrain injury, these children were of great concern to him because they usually have serious physical problems. And so a profoundly brain injured cerebral palsy child, can be totally immobile, drooling, not be able to talk, make strange sounds. And people who are uninformed look at them and think, oh, isn't that sad? They're idiots. But these children are not injured in the cortex, which is the highest part of the brain where human intelligence lies. So that area of the brain is not hurt or slightly hurt. So it's very easy to develop that. And my father learned that he could teach these children at the age of 2 and 3 how to read. And he thought, well, that would be great because then the world would respect their intelligence, right, and understand that it's not about their mobility. It's look how intelligent they are. So in 1963, he wrote the book How to Teach Your Baby to Read, which became an international bestseller. It's now in its 3rd edition. It's been translated into 20 languages. It's sold millions of copies around the world. And the beauty of the Doman learning.com site is the initial reading program is there on that site for parents, which you went through with Ella, and all the time that you spent, which turns out into money. The whole program is there. Spencer brilliantly teaches a course in reading to parents, and it's just incredible how he's taken this into the 21st century. So How to Teach Your Baby to Read was developed for those cerebral palsy children, but he realized, well, if you have a 3-year-old cerebral palsy child who is reading way above age level, what's wrong with the average child? Is it good to be brain injured? No, we know it's not good to be brain injured. So it meant that the potential of well children was being ignored, and that then started my father's work with How to Teach Your Baby to Read, and that part of our work that goes with well children. But what is clear if families read our books and through our courses is there's really a spectrum from profound brain injury, all the way up to average, and then way above average. And we're proud to say, if you twist our arms and say, of the most intelligent kids that are on the Doman method, we've got a lot of really intelligent, well kids who are now, in their 30s and even beyond. But we've got brain injured children who are, mathematics professors, lawyers, things like that.
Incredible. It's incredible. I remember this story. I just thought of this. one of the stories that I learned 17 years ago in your auditorium, there was something about, maybe, I hope you remember this. There was something about somebody who fell off a horse.
Oh, yes. Fukanaga.
Fukanaga. I'm glad I didn't try to
Mr.
pronounce
Fukanaga.
that. Okay. Tell the story. Because I learned about the brain. When you talk about the cerebral palsy kid, midbrain injury, so mobility, drooling, but totally in there. Yep. Totally in there. Cortex. That was eye-opening. But the way I got that message was through that story.
Well, Fukanaga was a famous case, and it got international attention because he was the most famous horse jockey in Japan. And this is, back in the 1980s, and he had won $1 million a year, every year, and was a national hero. And so in a race, a horse cut in front of him and knocked him off his horse, and then the horse behind that then stepped on his head, creating a profound brain injury and putting him into a coma. So my father was going to Japan to see our special needs children there, as we've gone for years. And he got off the airplane, and the press was there, the equivalent of, CBC, said, what are you going to do about Fukanaga? And my father said, well, you tell me what a Fukanaga is, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it. So he learned very rapidly and, spoke to the family, who then took our course and started on our program. And I remember the first time I met Fukanaga he was on the floor of our offices, completely immobile, drooling, and his 4-year-old and 6-year-old were running around him saying, "Daddy, Daddy, you're drooling. Daddy, Daddy, you're drooling. Daddy, Daddy, you're drooling." Now, at this point, we had gotten him out of the coma, so he understood perfectly. And I thought, as a 20-year-old at the time, imagine me, I'm on the floor, and my kids, I didn't have any kids yet, were running around me and say, "Daddy, Daddy, I'm drooling," and there's nothing that I can't move, I can't say anything. So it was a really, rough case. Fukanaga eventually came to Philadelphia. NHK came with him, a whole film crew, and in our boardroom with Fukanaga sitting in a chair, immobile. And the reporter said, "Now, Mr. Doman, if all goes well with your program, what do you expect that Mr. Fukanaga will be doing a year from now?" Now, I'm responsible for mobility. And, we don't give a prognosis because every brain injury is different. And it's impossible to know. Kids may seem the same. They may even have the same diagnosis. But that doesn't mean their brain injury is exactly the same, and the results will be the same. So we can't give a prognosis. We're just not good enough yet. But my father said, well, if everything goes well with the program, he'll be walking independently.
Douglas,
I thought, Dad, you've just said this on national television. And it's on me.
Wow.
It's on me. I mean, I never went to him and said, "What were you thinking of?" I was so shocked about it.
Wow.
Well, within 12 months, Fukanaga was taking his first steps. And that was his experience. He had the experience because traumatically injured people, there are parts of their brain that have not been injured. And so if we can get to those well parts that have information about the ability to crawl, creep, walk, or run, then we can much more quickly establish those abilities. And Fukanaga ended up getting back on a horse again, talking, we haven't talked as much as we should about mothers, but Fukanaga, his wife, and his father, who was his horse trainer, did the program with him. And the father, who was an expert in training horses, then used our program and his philosophy of horse training to get spectacular results with Fukanaga. He was an athlete.
Right.
And so I remember in that clinic that you know so well, Mrs. Fukanaga, a beautiful, small Japanese woman, putting her arms around her husband's chest and carrying him up the stairs, into the main clinical room. And I thought, wow, what a woman. I mean, she must have weighed less than him. Now, he was a jockey. They don't weigh very much.
Right.
But she was much smaller than him.
She's carrying him.
And, of course, it was her and her dad that got all those great results.
Incredible. And did he come all the way back? He talked?
He could talk. He wasn't perfect, but he could get back onto a horse. But I don't know if it was the 4-year-old or the 6-year-old became one of the best horse jockeys in Japan.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And did he describe what it was like when he couldn't talk? I mean, did he ever? Because that was one of the things I always thought about is the person who's in there, but can't. When they talk, it comes out, jumbled. But they're talking just like I am. But it's coming out.
It's coming out, yeah.
But
it's very frustrating.
How frustrating
it's
would that be?
It's very frustrating. And for, unfortunately, because of that frustration, a lot of the times when someone is in that situation, right, and they're trying to communicate and speak, and it's coming out, garbled or it's not clear, and especially if others around them, can't understand them or even worse, not listening. It can make the person very angry, and so sometimes for children with special needs, they will act out because of that frustration of not being heard, or even older people who have had strokes will sometimes become very frustrated and angry, and unfortunately, people who don't understand what's going on will sometimes respond with, that's just the way they are. It's like a symptom of their issue. And it's like, no, they're just angry that no one's listening to them, that no one can understand them.
This makes perfect sense. The potential that's down in there, it's kind of like you guys go down and grab it, whether it's a special needs child or a well child, giving the parents the tools to maximize the potential to get well if they're injured, and if they're a well child, to maximize what they can do. It's beautiful. We're out of time, unbelievably. DomanInternational.org is the website. If you have a well child, DomanLearning.com.
That's right.
.com. DomanLearning.com if you have a well child and you want to teach them to read early and all this wonderful stuff. If you have a special needs child or know of somebody with a special needs child, have a friend with a special needs child, check out DomanInternational.org. It could be life-changing, and that's not an overstatement. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Dean.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.